She works hard for the money, so hard for it, honey. She works hard for the money, so you better treat yourself right. All right. Hey, this is Lisa from LisaRobbinYoung.com coming at you with the second session, day 1, Creative Freedom Live workshop here online on Facebook, free to you to watch live. If you missed this morning's session, it will be running for a little bit longer today, and then it goes bye-bye. And if you missed any of the sessions and you want to catch the recordings, there is a link in the description that you can copy and paste or click or whatever, and it'll get you where you need to go so that you can get your own copy of those recordings. You'll also get a copy of the worksheets, the lovely, delicious digital worksheets that go with this workshop. There's, I don't know, like 20 some odd pages of planner pages and helpful tools to help you not only plan your year, but begin to implement the execution of that plan, because planning by itself is useless. Planning is everything, according to Dwight David Eisenhower, former President of the United States. Helena's back. Hey, Helena. Yes, delicious pages. Her brand is Live Delicious. So that's the inside joke there. And congratulations to you, Helena. I got your email and really great news about your client. So congratulations. I'm really excited for you about that. This session is about money. So hold on to whatever you need to hold on to keep yourself grounded, because we've got a lot of conversation around 6-figure business building, 7-figure business building, however many zeros you want to add beyond 6 figures, right, to your business. We're also going to talk about your enoughness number. If we don't get to that this session, we will get to that in the next session. The idea here is you've created these definitions of success for yourself. We don't want to jump right into goal setting and planning around that, because you need to kind of let it settle. You need to get the bigger picture context. Remember, I talked earlier about the 360-degree approach to business consulting, and this is what I do with my clients. We look at their context, what's going on in their world, what's affecting them personally as well as professionally, and how do we build this business in a way that supports what they want out of their life instead of pulling them away from it. So we start by defining the key areas of success. We start by defining what success looks like in the less tangible constructs. Then we translate that into dollars and cents, and we say, okay, so in order to experience this, I'm going to need this kind of money to make that happen, right? So we start here, then we move to the money, but we don't start planning any goals and start moving toward achieving any of them until we've had a chance to let that marinate. So we'll do all of this planning and defining today. You'll take the overnight to kind of sleep on it and marinate and, do I really want that? Is that really true for me? And really nestle into that. And then when we come back tomorrow, we'll start quantifying goals and action steps and all of that good stuff and turning it into an actual momentum growth plan for you. We'll talk about the different kinds of growth plans and how to know which one's right for you. All of this content is coming out of my new book, Creative Freedom: How to Own Your Dreams Without Selling Your Soul, a guide for personal and financial success as a creative entrepreneur. That is coming out at the end of November. This whole 3-day workshop is a celebration of that. So this is the first, last, and only time I'm going to be doing this way. If you want to get a copy of the book, that link in the description will get you there. If you purchase the recordings, you get an autographed copy of the book shipped straight to your door. So, bonus for that. So anyways, this session, we are talking about the 6-figure construct, okay? And there are 2 pieces to this whole making 6 figures thing. There's what I call the 6-figure illusion, and then there's the 6-figure distinction. And we'll talk about both of those and how to know where you fall on that spectrum during this session. As we get to the end of the session, we're going to start digging into the enoughness number construct. I think we'll have time to get there in this session. If not, we will pick it up in the next session. But the idea is, by the end of the day, you're going to have clarity on what you really need financially and personally in order to feel like you're living a life of success, a sense of freedom, all of the things that we talked about this morning. So I want to start with a story that you may have heard this story, you may be familiar with this kind of story. When I started on the internet about 20 years ago, don't tell, a little bit into my journey, because when I first got on the internet, pictures were kind of a newfangled thing. But probably about 12, 13 years ago, one of the things that I saw quite a bit in the online internet marketing space were pictures of dudes, and yes, they were dudes, with fat wads of cash in their hands, leaning up against their really sexy hot rods, talking about how they made a killing online and how you could too for 12 low payments of $100 and and the hard push, sell, push, flashy, in your face, icky marketing that was very common then because it was lowest common denominator marketing. The internet at the time was very young and unsavvy. We have matured a lot as a marketing audience in that time, but back then all you had to do was flash a wad of cash and show a picture of your fancy car, and everybody wanted to sign up for your thing because logic dictated and the marketing suggested that if you did what I did, that you could be living this wonderful lifestyle yourself. That story is still around today, only instead of dudes with big fat wads of money and checks and fancy cars, it's pictures of painted toenails with the beach just beyond and the sea and the sunset and the margarita in your hand, and how life is just so great because you've got this online business that is paying you cash 24/7, right? That's what I call the six-figure illusion. Okay? The six-figure illusion is, look at how great my life is, and yours can be this great too if you just buy my thing, do what I've done. Here's the problem. Well, there are several. But the first problem is, just because it worked for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you. Now, I say that with a warning because I am a teacher, right? And I teach constructs to help people become successful. Okay, so when I talk about what worked for them might not work for you, it's about the actual tactical steps that they took to succeed in their business, not the overarching framework of the principles. Okay, so the principles are things like finding your market and honing your message and getting clear on who you serve, how you serve them, and why. Getting clear on your pricing. Those are principles that speak to the strategy of how your business shows up in the world and how your business is going to function in a given marketplace. Those things have to happen, and you can learn them from a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. But the pieces that might not work for you are the specific tactics. For example, when I first went online, 1994, so it's been a long time, like there were maybe 7 websites. So everybody was like, I gotta go check out this new website. Now there are hundreds of thousands of websites that pop up every week. And you just don't have the bandwidth to go check out everything. The novelty has worn off. So you have to be more strategic. You can't just throw out a shingle and be like, hey, I got a website. Come buy my stuff because it's awesome. Doesn't work like that. Likewise, if you're using Facebook advertising, that's a tactic. And in some ways it's working now. And for people who've been in that game for a couple of years, they're noticing a diminishing return on their investment. Why? Because more people are getting into the game. So more money is being invested, which means ads cost more, which means you're putting in more money and you may not be getting the same return. So tactics change over time as the market matures, as more people get into that market. And you have to be aware of that. And if you're not aware of that, you fall victim to, gosh, I did this launch last year and we had like 100,000 people. This year we have 10. We did the exact same thing. Right. Or the online coach who's like, just follow my step-by-step blueprint and you will make bank. But what I don't tell you is, I spent $20,000 on Facebook ads, and that's how I got all the people into my program. And I don't even teach you that in my program. So good luck to you, right? Those things that worked for them, sometimes they don't even realize they've done them, and they're not teaching that to you. Those tactics, right? Or I spent $20,000 and I put it all on my credit card because I was broke. Well, not everybody has a $20,000 limit on their credit card, so you can't replicate that. You literally cannot do what they did. So that whole if I can do it, you can do it too thing becomes a load of crap. Now, again, the tactics, but the principles, the framework, the guideposts, those are timeless. You need a product or service. You need an offering, right? You need a way to generate revenue. You need a way to let people know that you have this thing available for you. That's marketing, right? You need to be able to have a sales conversation in some form or another. Is it a buy button? Is it an actual get on the phone conversation? Those kinds of things still have to happen. Those are the structural framework pieces that you can learn that are timeless. Those are the things that if you follow these pieces and put them together, you're going to see success. And we're going to talk a lot about that stuff on day 3, because what I want to do is take this out of the theoretical and really move it into here's how you apply this practically to your business. We're going to talk about offers, what they are and what they are not, and how do you craft an offer for your raving fans? How do you even determine who your raving fans are? How do you reach more of them? We're talking about all of that. And this wouldn't be an appropriate training program if we didn't talk about that. If I just said, well, set your goals and go for it, then I'm no better than anybody else out there who's sharing that fire you up kind of message. I want you to know not just the can do, woohoo, but the how to also. So can do and how to, that's what we're covering today. And so right now, we're talking about this 6-figure illusion that has wooed people into believing that, well, if they can do it, so can I. That may or may not be true. If you can do the principles and the frameworks and the structures that are timeless, then you can have comparable results, but maybe not the same. When I was a direct seller, when I worked with direct sellers, one of the things people said to me all the time was, can you just give me a script? Just tell me what to say. Tell me the words. And I'm like, no, because my words, the way I speak, how I show up in the world is different than you. If you're a 75-year-old woman who's very conservative and you show up to a Tupperware party and you're like, yo, bitches, what's up? Let's buy some Tupperware. Woo! Everybody's going to look at you like, who, what? On the other hand, if that's your market, if that's how you actually talk, then all the people in the room are going to be like, yeah, let's get our Tupperware on, right? So word choices don't mean a thing. The principles behind the word choices, why you say what you say at the time that you say it, that's important, right? So when I was teaching direct sellers, it was like, okay, when you are with your host and your host is getting ready to speak, you want to stand by her and put your hand on her shoulder or on her back so that you're conveying this message of, I stand in support of her. And visually, the room sees you backing her up, supporting her. They then get that emotional feeling of, I'm supported. I will be supported when I'm a host. I want to work with her. So it doesn't matter what you're saying as much as the visual. And then there are other times when what you're saying has to follow a certain pattern to engage the person's mind and keep them from drifting, right? So the actual words, not as important as why we're saying them, because then you can craft it to whatever you want it to be. Same holds true here. When you're building your business, there are principles, and understanding why those principles are important allow you to go, okay, so how can I apply that to me? And that's one of the things that I really take pride in is okay, here are the principles. Let me break it down for you so you understand why these are important. Now you can go back and play with them and find the way that works best for you, in the way that's going to resonate with your style and the way you talk and the way you carry yourself and the way you dress. Because I don't dress like Helena. I don't carry myself like Helena does. she has a very distinctive, casual, elegant style. You know, very classy, very sophisticated, very elegant, very fun and charming. I'm much more girl next door, put my blue jeans on, get my hands dirty, kind of, that's my brand. That's how I show up. So if I try to show up and pretend to be Helena, it's gonna fall flat. And if Helena shows up and tries to be me, it's gonna fall flat. It's not gonna work. You need to stay in your zone of authenticity and be what's true for you. That's where you're gonna find the most success in life and in work. And I say warts, sparkles, and all. Okay, so we have good days, we have bad days. We are neither our good days or our bad days. We are the sum of all of our days. There's a great book called The Secret Energy, or The Energy of Money. It's Catherine Ponder. And in this book, she talks about these masks that we wear. She uses 3 concentric circles, and she talks about our true self, and then the self that we're afraid of the world seeing, and the self that we want the world to think we are, right? So the facade that we put on. I call that the mask of the pretender. We wear this mask and we pretend to be something that we're not because we want the world to see us a certain way and think that we are this person, right? But that's really not 100% authentic because we're not that person all the time. Well, then there's this other mask, this mask of who we're afraid we are, who we're afraid that the world will find us out to be, right? That part of us that isn't 100% great all the time. We're not 100% on all the time. We're having a bad hair day, or we've got dirty dishes in our sink, or our home doesn't look the way we want it to when we have company to come over, or whatever, right? We have problem children, or our lives are out of control, or our finances are a mess, or whatever. We don't want the world, we're afraid that the world will look at that and judge us. That's the mask of the coward. The mask of the coward protects the rest of the world from us. And our darkness, our badness. Oh, judgment. The mask of the pretender protects us from the world because we're going to put this facade on and let them like that. They can fall in love with that and then we're protected. We've got this safe space between us and the rest of the world. But our true self is at the core of all of that. We're that bright, good, positive, wonderful piece that, you know, when we have our Facebook page that has all of the perfect pictures on it. And we're also the bad hair days, the bad mood days, the I just snapped at my kid days, I threw a plate across the room days. Like, we are all of that. And we have to take ownership of that as we're building our businesses around our lives. We're not going to be healthy 100% of the time. We're going to get sick. Do you have white space in your calendar to be able to take care of yourself? No? Then what do you do when you crash and burn? Okay? So having that fuller picture and owning authentically what is true for you, even if you don't like it, even if you're afraid that the rest of the world's going to be like, ugh, I can't. There are still people in the world who are looking for exactly you and exactly what you have to offer in the way that works best for you to bring it to the world. Right? Linda's back. Hi, Linda. Welcome back. Glad you're here. So we're talking about this element of 6 figures. Why do I think 6 figures is so important? Well, one of the reasons that I think 6 figures is important is because I follow what's called the profit first approach to business accounting and taking care of your money. I don't want to go too deep into that right now because we are going to talk about it later, but the premise of the key premise of this is that until your business is making about $250,000 a year, you are going to pay yourself from the company half of its earned revenue, okay? So after you've paid your contractors and your cost of goods, or all that stuff are handled, right? Then the real revenue of the company, you're going to pay yourself half. I would bet good money that most of the people watching this session are not making at least $250,000 a year in their business. If they are, go get Profit First because he works out all the other ratios. It's Mike McAllowitz, Profit First. He's a friend of mine. He walks through all of the other ratios. So once you've broken through $250,000, you adjust the ratios. But for our intents and purposes today, until you're making $250,000 a year, you're going to pay yourself half of your business income. Well, that means that if you're making $250,000 a year, half of that income is $125,000. You can live almost anywhere in the world pretty comfortably for $125,000 a year. So that's why 6 figures is such an important number for me when I'm working with my clients. And sometimes they start with 0. And I'm like, that's what we're driving toward until you have clarity on what your 6-figure distinction is. So now let's talk about the 6-figure distinction. And this was so important, I did a whole video on this for Creative Freedom. I think it was last season. So you can go back to the YouTube channel and find that, but we're going to walk through it here today. Okay, the distinction is, do you need the 6-figure lifestyle, the 6-figure income, or 6-figure profit? All right, and I'm going to walk you through each of those. Remember what I was telling you about the 6-figure illusion, the toes on the sandy beach and the margarita in your hand and all of those pictures of 6-figure bliss? That's the lifestyle illusion, the deception that so many marketers want to foist on you. But if that's truly the life you want, you may not need 6 figures in order to have that lifestyle. Okay? And that's where you need to make the distinction. Because as much as you could live anywhere pretty comfortably on $125,000 a year, there are lots of places, even here in the United States, where if all you made was $50,000 a year, you could still live pretty nicely. Now, you're not going to do that in San Francisco. You're not going to do that in New York City, more than likely. It's going to be really hard to live comfortably in those 2 cities. They're 2 of the most expensive cities in the United States. But there are lots of places where $50,000 you could live like a king. There are places in Mexico where if you brought in that kind of money, you could have a maid, you could have really fancy dinners every night. I mean, it's possible, right? So you have to get clear on what is it that you're really looking for. Are you looking for that lifestyle of ease? And the number isn't as important? If so, then you're looking for the 6-figure lifestyle. If, on the other hand, you really need the 6-figure income, then you need to be clear on that. If you've got a mortgage that is $50,000 a year, well, girl gotta eat, girl gotta dress herself, girl gotta take the kids to wherever the kids need to go, maybe you want to have a vacation. You need a 6-figure income to be able to take care of the needs of just having your life. Maybe you want to replace a corporate income, right? If you've been working a corporate job that pays you $80,000 a year, you can't replace that income by making $80,000 a year in your business. You have to make more than that because now you have to pay taxes. Now you have to deal with overhead expenses for the company. Now you've got a lot more money you need to spend out in order to keep that kind of money for yourself. So you need a 6-figure income, not just a 6-figure lifestyle. And then there are people who live in San Francisco or New York who their mortgage is 6 figures. I think I looked online and Steve Jobs' house, or a comparable house in Steve Jobs' neighborhood, 3-bedroom, modest home. The monthly mortgage was over $50,000. Right? That's what I said. $50,000 for a month in a 3-bedroom house. Like where I come from, I could buy 2 houses for 1 month's mortgage, right? Because I grew up in Flint. Linda says, I'm definitely not. I need to start using ratios and not just use it to pay whatever comes along. To live comfortably here, I need $180,000 US. Yeah, exactly. So if you know that that's the kind of money you need to be bringing in for yourself, then you have to make more than that in your company in order to pay yourself a living wage and keep your business healthy. And what I see a lot of creatives do is every dime that comes in, they pay themselves because they're not paying themselves, they're not making enough to live on otherwise. Like if they didn't have to pay themselves, the business might be profitable, but because they have a lifestyle demand that is of a certain level, the business isn't making that kind of money, so they can't pay themselves enough to live on, which means you either need to find income from somewhere else, or what is more often the case, you need to raise your rates, right? You need to find a different market to serve. You need to reach more people, right? There are different things that you may need to look at in order to bring in the revenue that you need to live on comfortably. And you can't know any of that until you have clarity. Clarity is king in so many ways. And you've got to have that context so that you can see, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. So that's the six-figure distinction. Do you need the lifestyle, the income, or the profit? If you need a six-figure profit, then your business is going to need to roll to mid to high six figures or even seven figures in order to be able to pay you the living wage that you need to be able to take care of yourself. And you got to be honest about that. And you might not be able to hit that in a year. It depends on where you're at. It depends on the mindset work that you have to do. It depends on a lot of factors. So for me to sit here and say, you can do this in your sleep, six figures, 6 figures in 6 minutes, you can do it. I did it. If I can do it, so can you. Like, that's crap. And it just piles on frustration, anxiety, resentment, thinking that there's something wrong with you, and there's not. You just haven't necessarily learned the right pieces in the right order. Most creative entrepreneurs come into business with a patchwork quilt understanding of how to sell and market their services if they come in with any idea of marketing and sales. Most creative entrepreneurs I met have been, I do this thing, I love this thing, I'd like to make money with it so that I don't have to do this other thing. Oh, I have to learn marketing? Oh, I have to learn sales conversations? Oh, And then if they're on the chaotic end of the spectrum, they're like, I don't even wanna. Like, can I just hire somebody else to do that? Maybe, but you still have to have some understanding of some things before you can just pass it off to somebody else, because they can't speak to your message the way you can, right? And we're going to talk more about that either this evening or first thing tomorrow. We'll see how time goes. Yes, Linda says, I've been forced to learn as I went along. Absolutely. That's exactly what happens to most creative entrepreneurs, because I was lucky in that I was raised very poor. We grew up on welfare in the ghetto in Flint, Michigan, and we didn't have. So I was taught to scrap for everything, learn as much as I could, get good at doing stuff by myself, on my own, figure it out, kid. And so when I went to college, I knew, hey, I am a poor, broke college student and I want to be a rock star. I guess I better learn some things about managing my money and handling business, and how do I market myself, and what kind of things do I need to do in order to get myself booked and tour and record. And like, I learned all of that stuff because I figured I was going to be broke and have nobody to be able to afford to hire, so I was going to have to do it all myself. Okay? And you'll find that fusion creatives in general kind of have that mentality of, I'll figure it out myself because that'll save me some money and I can save me some time and I can just do it because I'm faster at it. Chaotics are like, there's too many moving parts and pieces. Calgon, take me away. And linears are like, we've got this thing we've got to do. I don't care what it takes. We're going to get it done. I don't care what shortcuts we have to make. Let's get it done. Do it. And if I have to bring people in, okay, fine, but let's do it. Okay? That's kind of the spectrum in a nutshell. We'll go into more depth later. But understanding that gives you a little bit more clarity on why some people are faster to see financial success than others. Linears are like, well, the numbers don't make sense. Raise the price. Fusions are like, oh, yeah, the numbers don't make sense, but I'm not really making a whole lot of money right now. Why should I raise my price? And chaotics are like, oh, I can't raise my prices. My practice isn't full. I'm not making enough money now. Why would anybody pay me more if I'm not making enough now? And it's like, okay, mindset and mechanics are not the same thing. And we're going to go into that during this workshop as well. So, what I want you to look at is your enoughness number. And we're going to take a break in a few minutes where you can actually work through coming up with your own enoughness number. But I want to give you a scenario so that you can kind of see how this plays out, and then I'm going to give you the instructions on how to find your enoughness number, dealing with interim enoughness numbers, and then I'll let you guys break so that you can actually work on your enoughness number. So, using the formula that I gave you earlier, if your company is making $100,000, you're going to pay yourself $50,000, because that's half, right? Well, then you're going to set aside some money for profit, which is what you use to help grow the business and celebrate your success. And you're going to set aside some money for taxes because, you got to pay Uncle Sam. At least in this country, you got to pay Uncle Sam. And I'm sure other countries have similar tax constructs, right? So that only leaves you about $30,000 for everything else. That fancy new website, that VA you want to hire, your supplies and materials, everything in operations makes up about 30% of the income that you're bringing in. And I'll be the first one to tell you, when I first learned this whole thing, and we're going to actually do a whole session on it later, when I first learned this, I was like, oh my God, I am so mad, because I was essentially overspending without realizing I was overspending. I was taking classes, I was learning, I was making myself better, I was doing all the things I thought I needed to do to be competent as a business owner and be effective in my job and make things happen, and I was spending too much money. And I still wasn't paying myself enough. How about that? Like, I was paying myself and I was putting it right back into the business. And that was really not working for me. And it wasn't until I saw this, this model that Mike Michalowicz talks about in his book, Profit First, that my eyes were opened to how inappropriately we have all been trained. We've all been taught that profit equals income minus expenses. Okay? You get your income, you subtract your expenses, what you have left over is your profit. Mike flips that whole thing and says, you have your income, you take away your profit and your owner's pay, then what you have left are your expenses, right? That's the money you get to spend, right? And of the money that you get to spend, there's owner's pay, and then there's taxes, and then there's all the overhead and operating expenses. And it's a much smaller percentage than what most traditional businesses spend. But Mike maintains that this is how a business stays healthy and how you avoid getting into the money pit trap of, well, I just have to sell more stuff so that I can make more money and be profitable. Because what we all know is there's this crossover point where our income and our expenses kind of rise to meet each other consistently. And we have to, as business owners, step out of that pattern and create new patterns, new stories for ourselves. Now, I will tell you, as you are going through this process, stories are going to come up for you. Stories of not enoughness, stories of I can't, stories of I don't have, stories of lack, stories of woe. Write them down on a separate page in your notebook. Money stories that I tell myself. They may or may not be true. We're not dealing with whether they're fact or fiction right now. We just need to get them out of your head, because if you don't, they will keep coming back at you, and they will keep slowing the process down for you. They will keep thwarting your momentum, because you'll start paying attention to that instead of going, okay, but here's the job in front of me. This is what I need to do. Let me work on this. So if a story comes up, for example, why should I raise my prices when I don't have enough money at the prices I already have? Go, okay, I hear that, and I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to leave it alone for now, and I'm going to go back to doing the work. Okay? You're not going to be able to solve those problems right now, because that's a piece of truth you need to know about any workshop you go to. You're going to be changed at the end of the workshop if you're not changed already, and your situation probably won't change. If you have clients today, 3 days from now, you'll probably still have clients. If you don't have clients today, 3 days from now, you probably still won't have any clients. If you have money today, chances are good you'll still have money in 3 days. If you don't have money today, that's probably not going to change in 3 days. But what will change is how you show up and how you look at your situation. One of the things that I really try to hit hard is the idea of ruthless honesty. Ruthless meaning I'm not judging it, I'm just calling it as I see it. Right? It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. I have 2 clients. I have no clients. I have one awesome client and one who is so high maintenance, I'm not happy about that. Okay? I have lots of money in the bank. I have no money in the bank. No judgment. Letting the judgment go and just being able to clearly see what's in front of you. That's the goal with all of the money stuff. Because when we can take the energy, the fear, the emotions out of it, and linears are pretty good at this. And that's one of the reasons why they move more quickly through this process and have no problem dealing with money. To them, it's just numbers. Numbers have no emotion. But for the rest of us, we're all like, oh, the fear, the anxiety, the what ifs. And that stuff slows us down. So if you get money stories, write them down and get back to the work. All right? So with that understanding that until you hit $250,000 in company revenue, you're only going to pay yourself half of what your company is bringing in. When we take a break, you're going to start to work out what your enoughness number is. Now, let's talk about the enoughness number. The enoughness number is a concept that I've developed that is basically, when I have this much money coming in, I will have a sense that I have enough to handle all of the things that are going on in my life. So what you're going to need to do is think about that life you want to have. With all of your definitions of success in place, with all of the things that you want to be, do, have, and experience, we're looking for a typical day in the life. I get up at X o'clock in the morning. I'm sleeping in this kind of a bed with these kind of sheets and this kind of a living arrangement. I have these people in my life. I eat this kind of food. I have these kinds of appliances in my kitchen. I'm renting, I own, like whatever your whole scenario. I drive this kind of car. I live in this location. You need to work out how much is all that stuff going to cost in pretty brass tacks form. If it's going to cost me $50,000 for the car I want to drive, my monthly car payment's probably going to be around $700 or $800 a month, maybe more, something like that. You need to figure that out. And then calculate what the annual income would need to be for that. So Linda's saying she would need $180,000 to live comfortably where she is. So I would say, okay, Linda, if that's the case, then think about the activities you want to do with your kid, the family stuff that you've got planned, the kind of art you want to create, the places you want to go that maybe you haven't been yet. Will all of that fit into that number? If so, then that's your enoughness number. If not, then that number may need to grow. What I want to make clear, however, is that this is not an opportunity for you to go into overwhelm and shut down. Oh my God, I will never hit that number. We don't want to go there. What we want to do is hold the space of, well, if this is what I really want, and if this is what is really important to me, then that's the number. That's today's number. Now that number may change, and what I often find is as people are moving towards that number in their lifestyle, it's less about the number and more about the lifestyle as they get closer to it. But until they get there, there's all kinds of, and the number becomes the focal point that helps them keep moving. Okay? So the number that you set, the enoughness number, is going to be big enough that it's going to comfortably hold all of what you believe your life will look like when you're at that space. Linda says, yes, the number is the one I gave, but it'll get smaller once the debt is paid. Absolutely. Right? So if you've got those encumbrances on your current income, if you've got those encumbrances on your life, if you've got responsibilities, I've got a kid who's 11, and so I have expenses now that I won't have when he's 20, right? Your number will change, but for now, let's pick a number that feels comfortably large enough to hold all the things, and then add 20% on top of that. And I say that because life happens. And when we're planning for a picture-perfect life, we are not planning for, and then the car broke down, and I had to go to the hospital for 3 weeks, and my kid got sick, and a plane crashed into my house, and. We don't plan for tragedy. We don't plan for the surprise disappointments. We hope for the surprise blessings, but we don't plan for the opportunities that show up that we didn't even think about. Sometimes they can be wonderful things, and because we haven't planned for that, we haven't created the space for it, when it shows up, we can't do it. And I've had that happen where I've been given an opportunity to go somewhere and experience something, and because I didn't have the spaciousness in my finances and in my life to be able to accommodate it, I couldn't do it. Right? Not because I didn't want to, not because I didn't have room on my calendar, but because the other things in my life didn't create enough spaciousness to afford me the opportunity to be able to go. And I had to say no. and I don't like missing out on things. FOMO is not my friend, okay? So if we can create that spaciousness for ourselves, and then again, 20% more, there's your enoughness number, right? And I get that sitting with that might feel really huge and really scary, especially if you're eking by right now and barely bringing in a couple $1,000 a month. Like, how am I ever going to get to $15,000 a month or $20,000 a month? Like, how am I ever going to get there, right? That's where we create an interim enoughness number. Like Linda's example of $180,000 in a year might be a huge stretch for her in a single year. And yet, that's her enoughness number. That's the container that is going to hold all the things that she would like to be, do, have, and experience in a typical year. Okay? That's true for her. That's her number. And yet, her body doesn't feel that as doable, meaningful, believable, understandable. And we're going to talk about dumb goals later as we start to get into making the goals tangible. But if your body is like, that's just too big, I can't handle it, then you still need to create that number. And then you also need to create the interim enoughness number, the number that you're going to drive for over the next 12 months that feels doable, understandable, meaningful, and believable. But before you go there, because it's easy to go there and just be like, that's good, I'm done. Don't do that to yourself, okay? Do the hard work of really opening up your container. I have a friend, colleague, Teresa Romaine. She does this really great exercise at one of her workshops where she gives everybody a container. And there are items and fun little toys and trinkets scattered about, and she has you put what you'd like to put into the container. And then, the only rule is the lid has to close, right? So what are you going to put in your container? You get to choose the container of your body, the container of your life, the container of your business. You get to decide what's going to be in there and what's not. And you don't have to fill it just for the sake of filling it. If for you, a life of ease and comfort is, I want to live in a 1-bedroom bungalow in Hawaii, and I know that it's going to cost me this much money to be able to do that, and everything else can be really basic, then there's your enoughness number, right? On the other hand, if you're like, I want to live in a 4,000 square foot home with 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms, and I want to have somebody to help take care of that and all of that, that's a different enoughness number. And neither one is right or wrong. The thing that's wrong is when you go after something that isn't true for you. So you really have to face down what you want, what you really want here, and own it. Because the minute you look at it and go, oh, no, that's not for me, even though your internal being is like, yeah, that's exactly what I want, you'll have this fight, and you'll have a real hard time navigating the mindset piece that will get you where you want to go. So, create the enoughness number first. Sit with that. Be with that. And then we can go into the interim enoughness number and how do we bridge that gap. So we're going to take a break in like 20 seconds or so. If you have any questions about that, you can either post them right here in the comments or ping me a message and I will answer it in the next session. If you've got questions right now, go ahead and pop them in and I'll answer them before we close. But otherwise, make a list. I want to have this, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, and this is how much it's going to, this is how much it's going to cost me to be able to have that lifestyle. And in doing that, give yourself the clarity of this is what it's going to look like. Don't judge it. It is what it is. Okay? Create the enoughness number first, and then we can talk about how to turn that into an interim enoughness number that's going to serve you. So, until our next session, this is Lisa Robbin Young signing off, and blessings and peace. I will see you back here 2:30 Eastern, or 2:30 Central. Take care.